visit with us about the IGBC 5-year plan. Since he's monitoring my feed here.
Okay, thanks, Matt. And thanks to the committee, just reviewing with Matt the actions and decisions taken at this meeting and a lot of work ongoing. So I just want to revisit the discussion from yesterday about the larger, we're a subcommittee of the Interagency Grizzly Bear Committee. They've had a historic practice of maintaining a 5-year plan. They will be taking that up at their meeting in 3 weeks in Bozeman, December 6th, 7th, and 8th. And looking at the subcommittees, the major focus in the past for the Yellowstone Ecosystem Subcommittee, each of these, the plan language are expressed in goals, objectives, and planned actions. And there's been one goal for Yellowstone for a couple of cycles now of these plans, which is successfully transition to a delisted or to a recovery population. And a lot of the work that was described at this meeting is toward that goal, or our objectives, planned actions related to that. So we couldn't, I think, put that into sort of plan language very easily. And the question for the group is there another goal that you want to articulate for this next time window? That takes quite a bit of bandwidth, as you heard from the science team and from the we worked on habitat earlier this year, and each of those pieces have been big lifts. So I guess just sort of what those people see as goals to set for as a group, working as a group in the next time window. Are you good with the goal that you've had? And I guess there's two questions. For the goal that you've had, are there some objectives or some planned actions that you want to articulate in sort of the who is going to do what by when language of a strategic plan? And then secondarily, is there another goal that you might want to articulate for the next time period? About the screen, actually. Successfully transition to management of a delisted population. And so objectives within that might be, completing the transition, in the science category, completing the transition to the integrated population modeling approach. And we're very close to achieving that objective. And then a similar near-term objective would be then taking the step of using that science to update the conservation strategy itself. Again, quite close, we think, to that objective as well. And then, the longer term of that is harder to put dates and times on because it relates to other factors. But what do you want to capture as things that you want to look each other in the eye and say, these are things that we're doing together. And when we look back on this in a few years, we know we've made that progress. Okay.
Okay, so this has always been one of my pet peeves and sitting in IGBC because we have these 5-year work plans. And then nobody knows we have these 5-year work plans because we don't talk about it except once every 5 years. So to me, I think they're important both that, so we're telling IGBC and IGBC is telling us what its priorities are. And we just say transition to delisted, that doesn't really say anything. I think about what do we, these meetings here, what are we working on? What should we be working on? That's And to me, one of the foundational things is we have this conservation strategy. The conservation strategy has chapter on demographics, which Frank was talking about, chapter on habitat, chapter on education, IE, and then conflict. And it seems like, you know, what we tried a few years ago, at least, was have those as standing kind of topics, objectives, and then, you know, what did we say we were gonna do in that conservation strategy? That should be, to me, that should be our work plan, the next 5 years at minimum. That's, you know, we said we're gonna manage mortalities at these levels. We said we're gonna manage habitat at these levels. Goal should be, I commit, you know, we committed to doing that, and so goal or objectives and work plan should be at a minimum those things. And then a conflict is the other one that's part of that. And then if, when we have these meetings, come back and are we doing what they said we would do? The other thing that's been interesting to me is, and some of you guys experienced is we get, you know, we rotate chairs in this committee. And nobody's told the chair, chair, here's your work plan. They show up IGBC and talk about what we talked about here, but it's not tied to anything. But having it laid out more effectively, I think would help the chairs as they transition from one to the other.
So thanks. Thanks for that, Ken. And I think your recognition of the conservation strategy, and we had the 101 presentation from Jennifer yesterday. And we already sort of do organize the meetings around those elements. So in the spring, we get the conflict reports. We just got the science team report. You know, that's been a traditional fall element. And so I guess what I could see, and maybe I can work, Mary, with you on this, is building that standing agenda, asking the question, are we doing what we said we would do? And using the conservation strategy as the guide for that. I think we can do that. So when we get to the agenda, when we build agendas, it will be tiered from that, and make it clear that that's why that we're dedicating the time and the resources to reporting there. So on things like habitat, you know, we've got reporting mechanisms, and we can just make it clear that that's more. And the larger question is, you know, so this is a very mature subcommittee. It's been doing this work, for so long now, and has accomplished so much. This question is probably, you know, there's more on the table in some of the other ecosystems and at the range-wide scale. And so, you know, we'll be having this discussion in those places as well. Yeah, I think that's what we need for that today, and thank you for that, Ken. And I would like to work, I think you've been involved in a couple of these iterations, and I want to make sure we get the language right.
The one other thing is in the IGBC's plan, they had range-wide goals. So the IGBC plan has range-wide goals. So one of them is prevent food conditioning of bears. About, you know, update recovery plan, things like that. And again, for the range-wide goals to happen, it has to happen at subcommittee level too. So we should be looking at those as well, I think. My last point was, is in addition to the conservation strategy stuff, the stuff Frank talked about, you know, updating the population methodology to say at this point, adopt the IPM, but evaluate, you know, what's the best method. That should be a no-brainer one for us in the next year.
So, David and Matt, maybe this is the question, and first of all, apologies, because I kind of missed the last topic yesterday in the closeout. And I was thinking about my years as the chair, not even knowing that we had a work plan.
Yeah.
Right, and not having clarity what was expected in a work plan and what that expectation was with IGBC, even as a chair going to the meeting. So I think putting a bit more structure to that. And again, you might have talked about this yesterday. I'm unclear. All of us as entities have partnerships and other things that we work on externally. And I guess I'm just putting out there, I'm unclear if as the subcommittee, if we have clear next goals or action items related to kind of our external partner work on conflict, and I'm not proposing something, just do we have something that we want to work on and toward as a subcommittee? I was struck yesterday and by two things with Danielle's presentation, and maybe this was just me, but I was struck by how much great work is going on and, how much enthusiasm, how much talent and all that work that goes on over the years. And then I was also struck with how little funding there is coming from IGBC for that and how little money there is really to match. And yet how many NGOs and partners theoretically are around the ecosystem doing quasi-similar work, but not always connected in some way to the work that we're doing. So maybe not ready for that. Maybe that's not an action item, but I would be curious as a subcommittee at some point, what is, beyond all the technical work on the conservation strategy and the updates from the study team, what clearly do we have external goals on working on some things with partners, or do we say that's fundamentally the work that individual committee entities are doing kind of on their own or within their parts of the ecosystem?
Just have a quick follow-up to that. At the IGBC level, maybe David, this is something that could be brought up there to bring all of that together. And I know we have, the Bear Smart stuff that IGBC has been working on. But to Mary's point, having, I don't know, thinking out loud here, but having some sort of focused discussion on how all of the subcommittees work together on information sharing, all of the individual projects that are going on. Because there's lots of different things that we all know, lots of different things going on in lots of different places, and how can we bring all that together and optimize all of the work that's being done.
And again, I just want to, at this point, I realize my thinking is a little murky. I'm not advocating for anything, but as this subcommittee exists to coordinate, towards recovery and beyond that, I do wonder whether we have a goal on how we work externally.
Thanks for that, Marion. Clearly, the presentation we saw from Frank shows this shift of working, different places even, and the need to work with partners and members that aren't necessarily the direct federal habitat managers. And that topic is going to come up in other subcommittees. That topic is going to come up at the IGBC executive meeting. There is a small group that was created by the executive group this summer to look at this question of conflict that's, across the large region, what can be done at a regional level, what can be done with some of the other federal agencies that have jurisdiction and resources to work directly with private landowners, for example, and other partners, of course, as well. And you also mentioned, I guess so I think that you're right. That's absolutely, and that probably is all I need to say for here. Right now.
Any more discussion of the 5-year plan? Okay. So now we will move on to public comment. We do have one person signed up, just as yesterday. We will listen and take into consideration the input that's provided here, but we will not be responding. So, Phil Knight.
All right, hi there, Phil Knight, the Sierra Club. And, excuse me, I also work as a tour guide in Yellowstone National Park. So I had the opportunity to observe grizzly bears quite a bit. And have a long-term interest in grizzly bear survival in the Yellowstone ecosystem in general. So I really want to acknowledge the hard work of this committee over the years. I thank you for that, and also the overall really positive trend in grizzly bear survival, and seeing them expand their range somewhat is really helpful. And I trust we can make room for them and coexist with them. You know, I do worry about incidents like what just happened in Driggs, Idaho, when we try to coexist. But I did want to bring attention to a particular project that I've just been tracking and written some extensive comments on, called the South Plateau Project. This is on the Custer Gallatin National Forest near West Yellowstone. 15-year project that the Forest Service has proposed for 5,500 acres of clear cuts, over 9,000 acres of thinning, potentially 57 miles of new roads, all in, well, it overlaps with 3 bear management subunits. And it's also right in a critical dispersal corridor for grizzly bears if they're heading for Idaho from Yellowstone. So I'm concerned that the environmental assessment, it fails to really adequately analyze the impacts on grizzly bears, particularly the cumulative impacts of climate change and human activity on grizzly foods and habitat. And this project, I feel, is somewhat emblematic of the general trend of the Forest Service toward these mega projects. And all we got was an environmental assessment and 30 days to comment on this. I don't feel the project complies with Forest Plan standards. Plan says, you know, total acreage of secure habitat below the baseline values within a given bear management unit shall not exceed 1% of the acreage in the largest subunit within the bear management unit. That's a little bit of a tongue twister, but basically, how are we supposed to judge if this standard is being met when we don't even know where the roads and the logging units are going to be yet? It's that thin level of analysis that concerns me. Nor do we know how these 57 miles of temporary roads will be effectively closed. Design elements, what are those? Are these gates? Are these berms? What are they, and how effective are they in fairly flat terrain? So I'm concerned this will lead to more human access on foot, possibly illegal access on motor vehicles. And the Forest Service contends that grizzly bears and other wildlife, such as lynx or moose or wolverines, can just move somewhere else. But as we saw from some of Frank's maps here, some of this habitat may be saturated with grizzlies, so that could lead to more conflict between actual bears. So those are my main concerns with this project. And you know, the comment period is past, the objection period will be upcoming. So definitely be assured they'll be watching this one closely, and I trust some of you folks might take a look at it too, as we have other similar major projects rolling out, say in the Flathead National Forest, or the Lolo, or the Bitterroot. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you sharing that with us. That is the only public comment that we have. So with that, just want to kind of recap a few of the outcomes that we had at the meeting here. I think one very large outcome as related to the conservation strategy and moving forward is that the study team will be convening in early 2023 to talk about moving forward with the IPM. The small working group that Rick has led to this point will engage with that study team and act as a conduit back to this group. And hopefully in our meeting in May, we will have some outcomes from that and talk about moving those outcomes onto the executive committee for updates to the conservation strategy. Another outcome that we had here is that the genetic augmentation draft that was put together with leadership by Montana, some of the edits that came out of this meeting today will be passed on to the executive committee for consideration. So we will be reporting to the IGBC executive committee in December, right back here in Bozeman on some of the outcomes from our meeting. Certainly we'll be reporting on the first two things that I just discussed there, as well as an update where we are with our the outcomes from the conflict working group led by Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. I also want to mention that starting January 1st, you'll have a new chair, Mary DeVersa, and a new vice chair, Rick King. And lastly, yesterday we set some tentative dates for our 2023 meetings, May 10th and 11th. That was in Cody, correct? May 10th and 11th in Cody. And we also discussed October 25th and 26th for Jackson. Mary has brought to my attention that some folks, more than one, may have a conflict there. So Mary will likely be reaching back out. I don't know if you want to have that discussion now or just wait and reach back out to the group. Any discussion on that for the moment?
Well, I don't know if you need that for this. You probably don't need the whole microphone, but this kind of relates to the interconnections between GYCC meetings and YES meetings. And I can't make the meeting that week in October, and it's also a regional leadership team meeting in that week, so that would affect at least Lisa and myself. So then we were trying to figure out, is there a different date that we could move to so that we could keep GYCC and YES in the same week? You know, if not, if we're kind of the minority, we might just have to send actings, but.
Well, let me ask the question. I think when we initially talked about the October 16th, which was pre-wired a little bit regarding known conflicts with that group, I think there was one person that had a conflict with that, but since no one else spoke up, we kind of ran with it. So since you and Mel are sitting next to each other, maybe I'd get it worked out. How's that sound?
So it sounds like, Mel, you had a conflict the week of the 16th.
Yeah, Chad and I both have four
Okay.
regional leadership team meetings that whole week, so at least as of now.
So we might have to coordinate this offline, but it's actually helpful to know because there's not full overlap between YES and GYCC. And I'm trying to think of, do we have most GYCC members in the room? So it looks like the week of the 16th doesn't work and the week of the 24th doesn't work. I can think about what else we could.
So if we're looking at weeks that tend to be into October, kind of in our window, the week of October 6th is earlier than typical, but it's a possibility. Week of the 16th we identified does not work, or the 23rd does not work,
Or Halloween week. not that it's labeled Halloween week, but for the week of,
You always have them how.
Yeah, the week of the 30th is candidate, but I know that a lot of people, families tend to not prefer being gone over Halloween. And
No.
then the week of the 6th of Veterans Day is Friday, so while that wouldn't affect this group of meetings, it is a compressed schedule, so, I mean, it's really just a matter of what's gonna be the optimal date for the group.
so really, we're talking about week of October 30th or the week of November 6th as alternate dates.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
Do those pop up major conflicts? Other than the Halloween conflict? Like there, do you have cams?
I don't have a schedule, but
I have honestly have no preference on those. I was just trying to make it so that, because it sounds like Lisa and I had the same issue as you guys, which is we have regional meetings we're committed to. November 6th?
I like that week better.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. So we'll land, yes, that week, and then we'll confirm it back with GYCC that we.
so yes would be the 8th and 9th of November.
Yes, so typically we do the GYCC first, and then like the 7th and 8th.
Yep.
And then the 8th and 9th would be yes. That works.
Matt, on behalf of the subcommittee, thank you so much for taking over after Jim White. You've done an excellent job. Thank you so much.
You have to do it the same week so that we don't travel all those times, although it's in Jackson, so.
Okay, so it sounds like we're settling on November 8th and 9th.
Yeah.
And that is in Jackson.
Beautiful.
Okay,
Right.
well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's harder than taking it.
Outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what.
Good show.
So then,
Have any questions?
That's.